That one I paid $7,500.
It is 9:30. Let's call the county board meeting to order for August 25th of 2020. Please rise and join me in the pledge.
Commissioner Look.
Here.
Commissioner Brastad.
Here.
Commissioner West.
Here.
Commissioner Schulte.
Here.
Commissioner Meisner.
Here.
Commissioner Gamache.
Here.
Commissioner Reiner.
Here.
Excellent. We are all present and accounted for. Next, we'll look for a motion on the tax claims and abatements. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Brastad is on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner West. Further discussions? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Brastad.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reiner.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
And that item passes. Next, we'll consider accepting the regular claims paid over $500 and purchase card claims paid for the period ending August 14th of 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Look, second by Commissioner Meisner. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reiner.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
Commissioner Brastad.
Aye.
And that item passes. Next, before you, you have the minutes from August 11th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Look. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Brastad. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes are adopted. Next is chair's remarks, of which I have none for you today. So we will move right on to committee reports, and we'll go to the Transportation Committee. Our committee had the opportunity to meet on Monday, August 17th at the Bunker Hills Activity Center in the Maple Room. And we have 3 items to bring before you today under our Highway Division. First, the committee recommends approval of a resolution authorizing Anoka County to enter into a local road improvement program, or better known as LRIP agreement, with the Minnesota Department of Transportation for the acquisition of right-of-way and easements required to construct the interchange improvement project on US Highway 10 or 169 at the intersections of West Main Street, Fair Oak Avenue, and Thurston Avenue in the city of Anoka. Is there an offer of the resolution?
I will offer it.
The resolution has been offered. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reiner.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
Commissioner Brastad.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. We will move on to item 2, which will sound very familiar. The committee recommends approval of a resolution authorizing Anoka County to enter into a LRIP, or Local Road Improvement Program agreement, with the Minnesota Department of Transportation for professional design services and right-of-way acquisition services associated with the interchanges we previously mentioned in Anoka at West Main, Fair Oak, and Thurston. Is there an offer of this resolution?
I'll offer that as well.
The resolution's been offered. I just want to comment, this has been many, many years in the making. We've worked really hard in partnership with the City of Anoka and the Minnesota Department of Transportation and the City of Ramsey and Coon Rapids and others to further these projects. And this is, this is a highlight that this is really moving on, that we are going to see some improvements on Highway 10. And with that will come an extreme amount of pain as we get through the next 3 to 4 years. Be ready for 1 lane in each direction on Highway 10 through the city of Anoka. But as we used to say in sports, no pain, no gain. So if we're going to gain good traffic flow and safety improvements through that area, we need to put up with that short-term pain now. Start looking at some maps, figure out what a good route might be for you to get to the cabin or get to and from work on that commute, whether that's Bunker Lake Boulevard or whether that's crossing the river and using 94 whatever it may be, this is going to be very congested and very choked up for 2 to 3 years. So we will do our best in working in conjunction with Minnesota Department of Transportation to make sure that this is open as much as it can be during high traffic flows and during winter patterns when they're not working. We'll make sure that there's decent traffic flow. But in the meantime, we're starting the process. You hear this is about right-of-way acquisition and other planning in the projects. So this isn't actually letting a bid yet or digging a hole, but this is the first steps towards getting this done. And it's a train that's rolling that won't stop. It's going, it's going to happen, so start planning ahead. Any further discussion? Commissioner Look.
Mr. Chair, I just want to comment that I want to express my thanks to MnDOT for coming alongside us on this road, and actually on this particular project, funding a large portion of it and finding the dollars for it. I know when Scott McBride was with MnDOT, he was instrumental in finding some of these dollars, and just closing that funding gap, I think, is what's really exciting. When I'm out door knocking with folks, everybody knows about this. The information is out there. Kudos to our transportation department for getting that out, and media for covering it, and everybody. They fully understand the project. They understand the pain. They are acceptable of that, though, given the fact that they know these roads have so many issues right now, whether it's pedestrians getting hit or 4 to 5 times more accidents than any other similarly volumed road. I mean, they're fully aware of the problems. And so I make sure I apologize in advance for the pain that'll be experienced, but I know that the public is fully supportive of us in this project, and I'm excited to hear that because it's a wonderful project.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Look, for your thoughts, and more so for your leadership on this. You've been pushing for this as long as I've known you. You've worked really hard in the shoulder to the wheel, every opportunity at CTIB, County's Transit Improvement Board, leveraging funds for these types of projects. Your service on the Transportation Advisory Board, or TAB, made all these happen. And that includes Armstrong up in Ramsey. That wouldn't have happened but for your work and your leadership. And the rest of these projects along Highway 10 come behind you. You're the one who's done the yeoman's duty, and I appreciate the opportunity to stand next to you to make sure these happen. But your work has been pivotal, and it's certainly recognized by the chair of this board and hopefully by others. I know other people in the region have noticed, so keep working, keep doing what you're doing. We want to get this done.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Meissner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner Brasted,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye. And that item passes. Next, the committee recommends approval to enter into a joint powers agreement with the City of Coon Rapids for the maintenance of a new traffic control signal system to be constructed at the intersection of Northdale Boulevard, which is a municipal state aid street, and the commercial access currently servicing the Menards in the City of Coon Rapids. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move it.
Motion by Commissioner Gamache. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner West. And I will just comment under discussion points that we had a lengthy conversation about this at our Transportation Committee meeting, and that this Transportation Committee and perhaps this County Board isn't fully on board with this style of intersection here. We think it's going to be a little bit of a problem when they're done. It's very tight to Main Street. There's very little room for stacking. We think it'll be challenging. However, this is a city-built, city-controlled intersection, and it does have to come to us, but not for specific approval. They can do this project without our consent. We will be doing the maintenance on this project, however. That's what this particular agreement is. We'll be doing the maintenance of the signal system. And it may work great. They did use a consultant. They didn't haphazardly pick this design. They did a intersection control study with a consultant, and this is what they determined would be best, so we will support them any way we can, hoping for positive outcomes. So we'll see where it goes. Further discussion? Commissioner Gamache.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is a difficult intersection, obviously. Again, as you mentioned, close to Main Street and stacking, but it's also very busy, and crossing traffic in that area can cause some serious problems in those areas. So I think it's something that needed to be addressed in some fashion I'm not sure if they ever came up with an idea for a cul-de-sac there, or not a cul-de-sac, but a roundabout in that area that might work as well as they've got over in some of the other areas on the in Riverdale. But you know, this one needed to be addressed because you have people right out, left out traffic coming across, and you have traffic coming off of Main Street, and usually at 35 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, whatever the speed limit there, it seems to be faster in some cases. So, and there's always a lot of traffic coming out of Menards in that area, along with the McDonald's that's there as well. So I'm glad Coon Rapids is looking at it. This probably needed to be addressed. I'm glad they're doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gamache, and I agree. What does really compound it is the exit from Costco, or entrance to Costco, depending on how you look at it. The entrance seems to be a little more smoother than the exit, depending on where you're coming from. But this will change that somewhat too. There will be a new quote-unquote pork chop style median built out there that'll prevent left turns out of Costco.
Good.
Right now, you're not allowed to do it, but people still do. This will physically not allow them to turn left. They will have to turn right when they exit Costco, which should speed up and make that intersection a little more safe as well. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and not that I don't mean to sound like a pessimist, but in the event that this doesn't work out very well in reality, then I assume the city then would be responsible for any sort of modifications and changes. So again, we're just responsible for maintaining what the design is currently.
Right.
Okay.
The answer is we are signing an agreement here to maintain their product. And if it doesn't work out, they can leave it as is, not working out, or they can modify it,
Okay.
fix it, but it will be all on their dime.
Thank you.
At this time, I'm going to introduce Joe McPherson from our Highway Department so he can correct anything that I've said wrong. Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, fellow commissioners. No, I think you hit it right on the head there. That's true. This is their signal. It's their roadway. So anything that comes in the future will be their responsibility. We're simply just maintaining the signal. Yep.
So our hope is that their consultant really did a good job and that we're perceiving it a little wrong and that it works perfect. That's our hope. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
Commissioner Brasted. Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
And that passes unanimous. That does complete my transportation report. Thank you, Joe. And we will move on now to the Human Services Committee report and turn to Commissioner Brasted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our committee met on August 18th, and we have just a few items. The first is the consent agenda, which consists of a contract renewal and then acceptance of a grant, and I will move that.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Meisner. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
Commissioner Brasted. Commissioner West. Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
And that item passes.
And the committee recommends the county board enter into contract with Stepping Stone Emergency Housing for housing support emergency shelter funding at $72,080.24 per month. This is a 1% increase through December 31st, 2020. This came about because the state legislature has authorized an increase to the base rate of housing supports. And this actually was effective July 1st of 2020. And I'll move that.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner West. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Look. Commissioner Brasted. Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Abstain?
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
And that vote passes 6-0 with one abstention.
The next item is Resolution 2020 HS 15, which is the economic assistance bills, and I'll offer that resolution.
The resolutions have been offered. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, it's a roll call vote.
Commissioner Brasted.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
And that item passes.
And the last item is Resolution 2020-HS16, which is authorizing signatory of Public Health and Environmental Services Director. And I'll offer that resolution.
The resolution is before us. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, it's a roll call vote.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner Brasted.
And that item passes.
And that concludes my Human Services report.
Thank you, Commissioner Brasted. Let's move to the Information Technology Committee report and turn to Commissioner Gamache.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The IT committee met on August 17th at Bunker Hills Activity Center. We have one action item today. The committee recommends the county board approve a purchase from Insight Public Sector, Inc. For the amount of $252,469.96 for the replacement of 12 blade servers and 2 blade chassis. The Blade server is a device that provides applications, databases, email, phone services, and many other items, systems that are in the county and that we use every day. And the chassis are the server are there to house the Blade servers. The Blade servers and the chassis are in use 24 hours a day, so they get a lot of work. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Although they have been reliable and have lived up to all expectations, they have reached the end of their life cycle. The 12 blade servers and the 2 blade chassis are reaching end of support by the manufacturer in October of 2020, so we're acting now. The existing 12 blades and 2 chassis were purchased in 2012 and 2013, and then that makes them 7 years old, and that's usually the time of the replacement. Susan Vreeland, our IT director, is here with any, can elaborate more and answer any questions. But it is recommended that we need to make this happen now, just because of the fact of how important they are. The 24 hours a day, 7 days a week obviously shows that, and the fact that they've been now working great for about 7 years. It's time that we act and make sure we don't have any breakdowns along the way. Susan, do you have anything else to add?
I do, Mr. Chair, members of the County Board. I'm Susan Vreeland, the Director of Information Technology. You summarized it well, Mr. Chair, and just to add a little bit of context, there's really 3 key components that make everything we do and your ability to look at all the information in front of you work for the county. The first one is the county's network, and so that's kind of the county's highway, the equivalent of Joe McPherson's highway, that allows for all that data to flow amongst all of our county locations and the county staff. The second piece is our SAN, or our storage area network, that keeps all of that information backed up and kind of stored so that when we need to get to it, we can get to it. The third component is what's in front of you today, and that's our Blade server system, and that serves up all of the information, the files, the applications, your email to county users on a daily basis. And so what we do with that, we used to have in the old days a number of hundreds of servers all lined up in a data center that we'd manually back up and deal with and do. And when the industry changed to that Blade system, 1, for reliability, and 2, for the purpose of support, we moved to that model as well. And a Blade chassis is kind of about so big. And inside of that chassis, and we have 2 for primary support and 2 for backup, there's a number of little blades that are about so big that's fit inside of that chassis. Those blades can incorporate dozens of servers versus servers lined up on the floor. And inside of those, we house all of our systems, our applications. Inside of just one small component of one of those encompasses the county's entire phone system. Our phone system used to be in a 12-by-16 room with all kinds of wires and things coming out of it. That's all now encased inside of that. And so it's extremely functional. It's very reliable. It's also, from a DR perspective, very easy to switch over from our primary to a backup. So at our DR site, we have a very similar system that if something happened to this physical facility, we could switch all of that over, and it's not immediate, but pretty quickly we could get ourselves back up and running. So it's very critical equipment. It's not Best Buy type of technology, so if it were to go down, we could bring up that other site, but getting the primary site going again couldn't happen quickly. So we need to make sure that this primary site equipment is functional, running, and current. What we have right now is between 7 and 8 years old. Different components of it are. Typically, the industry standard is about 5 to 6 year old. So we are kind of pushing it. It is running 24 hours a day, so it's about time to get moving on swapping it out. As it relates to cost, we did put this, we have a pretty extensive, large spreadsheet and another process that we use besides that to plan out our capital improvement plan. This has been embedded inside of that plan for 3 to 4 years. We knew this was coming. As it relates to budget, we typically look to get about 43 to 47% off of manufacturer's list price for equipment. In this particular case, we got 58% off list price. So a significant savings off of our typical plan, so we're excited about that there. We do believe that this is a set cost. Sometimes we incorporate, depending on the technology, a small change order. We don't see the need for that at all with this purchase. So we're looking to bring it in-house and do most of the work and services to install it ourselves. So that is the request before you today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Susan. Obviously, if anybody's looking to buy a car in the future, you might want to have Susan come with you where she can get all those discounts, 50% off, 58% off of what the list price is pretty darn good. So we've been working on it for a while, and your staff has done a great job. They brought in a sample so that we could take a look at it while we were going over it, but staff has done a great job, and they do a great job as well on working on these so that we can get extra years out of what the normal suggested years are. So that's very valuable to us as well and saves us a lot of money. So,
Thank you, Commissioner Gamache. Commissioner Meisner.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just commentary, just to thank you for explaining this. I think IT is one of those departments that, most of us just aren't aware of all of the things that go on that allow us to do our work. So I just appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move it.
There's a motion by Commissioner West, second by Commissioner Gamache. Further discussion? Commissioner West?
I remember when we did this 7 years ago, and I feel like this price is not any more than we spent then. Do you remember? I'm curious.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner West, it's very close. It's actually a little bit less. And actually what we purchased before was, I don't want to call it a little bigger and clunkier, but the technology was much newer back then. I always go back to that default example of the flat panel TVs and how it was really expensive and heavy, and it kind of was back then. The prices have gone down a little bit. So we are very comparable, but still the discount we got, and I appreciate the compliment. I can't get that kind of deal in my personal life, but we were truly surprised that it really went down as far as it had, in part to negotiation, but also the market for it. We do get a little nervous right now. Most of our chipsets come from overseas, and so it is kind of a volatile market, but between the timing, the negotiations, and hard work on the part of my staff, I really have to give them the credit. The stars just kind of aligned, but to your point, it's very comparable to what we did 7 years ago, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner Brasted, Commissioner West.
And that item passes.
And that's all I have for my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Gamache. We will now jump into the Property Records and Taxation Committee report, and we will turn to the chair, Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Property Records and Taxation Committee was held on August 17th at Bunker Hills Activity Center. I do only have informational items. However, I would like to share the work with the public. And the 2020 state primary election, recap and update, we had a very successful election day with an average of 22% turnout for the county. Approximately 24,000 voters at polling places and approximately 23,000 absentee ballots. So that was a 50-50 split, which is very significant. Counting the ballots went smoothly with the additional 2 days. In terms of property reviews, the appraisal staff are finishing up with the manufactured home parks of Centennial and Blaine International. Staff will then move on to the city of Blaine. And the PRT Tyler implementation update, looks like there is progress being had. Some things are moving forward, so we keep plugging away at that, which is great. And then as far as a specific election update as well, just based on some of the questions that have been received from the public, here's a few points to share. So in-person and mail absentee voting for the general election starts on September 18th. So that is right around the corner. Voters that have already submitted an application to receive an absentee ballot by mail will have their ballot sent out on September 18th. As of Friday, August 21st, approximately 39,000 voters in Anoka County have signed up to receive their ballot by mail. If you are considering voting absentee by mail, you are encouraged to sign up as soon as possible. We are expecting a high demand on that, and that is very helpful to do it sooner rather than later. Returning your ballot by mail is safe and reliable. As long as your ballot is postmarked on or before Election Day and arrives by November 10th, it will be counted. However, if you are more comfortable by hand delivering your ballot and you do not want to mail it, you can drop it off at the Anoka County Government Center or your City Hall. And that concludes my updates and informational items. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Meisner. Next up, Commissioner Law.
Mr. Chair, I just want to comment. I've had the opportunity to speak to a few of the election judges, and the first question I had for them was, how did people handle the in-person type of voting? Was there any apprehension, that sort of thing? And from my personal experience, just the way it was handled, the distancing, the protections in place, I didn't see any of that, and I haven't gotten any indication from any of the election judges or the people working that there was any issues at all with in-person voting. So I want to encourage people to go and vote in person if they so wish, and we're taking every precaution possible. And the people that have signed up to work, be it judges or whoever, election personnel are just doing a phenomenal job. So I want to thank them. And Paul, thank you for coordinating all that. You're doing a great job.
And Commissioner Look, thank you for speaking to that. I will say that people should feel comfortable in Anoka County voting absentee by mail, because we have very, very strict criteria. And feel free to check out our website. I think we have a video on our website of how it's all happening behind the scenes to make sure that we have integrity in voting. But at the same time, they should feel perfectly comfortable utilizing the in-person voting, as all of the instructions per the governor are in place at all the polling locations, social distancing, all the cleanliness, everything that's needed for you to vote safely in person. So feel free to be comfortable to do either one of those, whatever suits you best once October, November rolls around. But thank you for your comments. Commissioner Meisner.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate your commentary and especially the feedback with what happened with the in-person voting. And I don't mean to sound contradictory. I just want to remind what the Secretary of State, he made two basic asks, again, because of COVID-19, but he did in fact ask everyone to consider by voting by mail, just for the public health issues, and then also number two, to consider becoming an election judge. So I just wanted to remind us about that. But again, to your point, obviously, if you want to vote in person, you absolutely can. We are doing it safely, and it seemed to go really smoothly for the primary. Thank you.
And I don't know if this has actually been told at a public meeting yet, but we had about 50-50 for the primary. About 50% voted in person and about 50% were absentee. And it was successful by all accounts. I mean, everything was counted, everything was accurate. And the general is going to be a different story because there's going to be a lot more people voting. So it's going to be a challenge for us in-house and staff in Anoka County to handle all the mail-in absentee ballots. 39,000 so far is a pretty big number, but we are prepared to do it. And if you feel comfortable doing that, do it. Commissioner West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I looked up, I was filling out a questionnaire yesterday, and they asked about how many registered voters we had. I looked up, we have 217,000 registered voters in Anoka County and 350 people. It's that high a percentage of our population. It sounded odd, unless we've got a lot more than 350 now. But I also wanted to ask, what usually shows up at a normal presidential year primary compared to what we've got today?
I think we'll be calling Paul Linnell, our elections expert, to the microphone to answer that question.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Could you clarify when you're asking about a typical primary voter turnout percentage? Is that what you're?
Yeah, how many people vote by mail in a primary versus what you've got going so far?
The typical percentage that we see voting by mail is around 10%. So to see it up at 50%, and this does include early in-person voting as well, but that was a small fraction. It was about between 1,500 and 2,000 of the 23 or so thousand that were cast absentee. The vast majority were by mail for this election. So it's a really significant jump compared to previous primaries or even general elections in the past.
Thank you. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more than half this time.
Yeah, I think we're certainly trending in that direction. I know a number of people across the county are receiving mailers from campaigns, other organizations. Review those applications. We're getting them. They look different, but as long as they have all of the required information on there, they come back to us. We will process those, get you signed up for an absentee ballot. If you have any questions, please reach out to our office by phone or email. We're happy to help voters with any questions that they do have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Commissioner Reiner.
I've got a question. You know, for these entities that are sending out to the homes applications for ballots, are you finding it political, where it's being sent to just one party, or is it kind of across the board, just being sent to everybody?
We're seeing it come, especially in the last few weeks, from a number of different organizations. So from some of the candidates that are running for higher office from both parties. There's a nonprofit organization that we put out a statement back in June to address some concerns around voters that were receiving unsolicited applications. This was kind of the first big wave of that. So that's been a big source of receiving those applications, but it's from across the board. I think AARP has sent out applications, unions we've heard from, and others that are sending them out. And there's nothing that restricts the sending of applications to voters. Just to be sure folks know, you don't have to return that. It's something that's being offered to you as an option by those entities, but you're free to vote in person at the polls if that's something that you prefer to do.
Commissioner Reiner.
So, you know, but more specifically, do you see, there's probably a variety of different entities sending out for a variety of different reasons and probably targeting membership and certain groups. But do we know that? I mean, do we know whether or not certain groups are being targeted, or is it something that's just, I guess, in general, is it more a blanket mailing, or is it more targeted?
I couldn't speak definitively to that. Our office just gets the applications when they come back. We may hear from voters specifically about who they received that application from if they call with questions or concerns. But really, we're taking the applications, reviewing them for completeness, and if a voter has signed up for the ballot, processing them. So that might be more a question directly for those that are receiving those, or if others have gotten those directly from campaigns or other groups.
All right, just curious.
Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what you're asking is actually the receivers, right? Are the people who are getting these applications being targeted?
So like you said that some unions are sending out, are they sending to their members, or are they sending to a particular political party, or, I mean, I'm just kind of curious about all this activity that's going on, obviously affecting the election, increasing the numbers by 500% of people that aren't showing up to mail. I was just kind of curious about who's being solicited here.
And
Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you. Just to follow up, this is anecdotal, of course, but and I cannot remember the name of the nonprofit. It wasn't associated with a union or anything like that, but I know that in my district, Republican or Democrat, they just got the application. So in that regard, this one particular nonprofit, anyway, they didn't seem to be targeting any party or audience. It was just a blanket mailing that went out to everyone in the neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not asking based on any information I have. I'm just curious.
Right.
Thank you for the question. Paul.
And if I may add just one final point on that, is to say that everyone has access to this. Anyone can go and apply at mnvotes.org or can call our office. We want to make sure the absentee voting by mail process is accessible. So for those that haven't gotten an application, we get a lot of calls saying, my husband got it, but I didn't. Please reach out to us. We will get you the form that you need, direct you to how you can apply to vote by mail if that's what you prefer.
Thank you, Paul. And a reminder, if you don't get an application in the mail, you don't need to get one. You can just go vote on election day if you choose to. That's how the process is supposed to work. Commissioner Reiner.
Yeah, and I guess I would just add that, I voted in person on Election Day, and boy, the precautions that were in place were phenomenal, and everybody felt pretty safe. They had everything kind of, the A, B, C, D, E, F, G of voting, and you just went through. You got to keep the pen because they didn't want to spread germs. So,
Congratulations, Paul. Job well done.
Thank you, and thank you to all the election judges again.
Thank you. And I would comment to Commissioner West's point. She talked about the county population. We're in the middle of a census, so our number from 10 years ago is obviously grown. I think we're between 362,500 and 365,000. That's the estimate of what the population of our county is today. But I'm urging everybody, get counted. The census is happening now. Be counted. We're one of the highest in the state. Not the highest yet, but we can fix that. We've got time. So 365,000 of you, make sure you're getting counted. One way or another, make sure you're part of this census, because it will determine how much money we get to fix Farrell, Thurston, and 10, and how much we get to fix Highway 65. All those road funding things come into play when we're dealing with population and human services, and everything we do at the county is based on our population. So if we're undercounted, we will be underrepresented financially from the federal and state government. So do your best to make sure you're counted. Remind your neighbors, remind your family and friends. Be counted, be a part of the census, and let's make Anoka County #1 in the state for census contribution. I think that concludes your report. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will turn to Commissioner Brasted for the public safety report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our committee met on August 18th, and our first item is that the committee recommends approval and execution of contract with Men Correctional Health with a maximum contract value of $7,237,033 for the initial term of October 1st, 2020 through December 3rd, 2023. This comes from an RFP was issued in response to a number of challenges that were encountered by the Anoka County Correctional Health, which led to cross-training and reassigning of nursing staff across the facilities. So we've decided this will be the first time that we're going to contract out for the Community Corrections Department and for the jail for the healthcare services. Let's see, MEND is a well-known organization. They serve 45 other county facilities, so they are very familiar with what they're doing. This will actually be good for us because there is going to be an increase and an expansion of both mental and medical health services, and incorporated with our contract is a new electronic medical record system. It's kind of a lot of information, but for the first time we're going outside for this type of health care, and I'd be happy to move that.
There's a motion before us. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Meisner. Further discussion? Commissioner Meisner.
Just commentary, and I'm glad that Commissioner Brasted just talked about that these are experts in the field, because I know that was part of the discussion in our committee. You know, how many other counties do they work with, or is this really kind of their specialty? So yes, they are, and so I'm glad that you just brought that up to put anybody's mind at ease, because this is a big change for the county. Thank you.
And to that point, Commissioner Meisner, I think we are one of the last in the state to have our own nurses inside our jails and correctional facilities. So this will be a step towards what everybody else is doing. Not that I say that that's always right, but in this case, I think we're pretty good footing. Commissioner Look.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify a couple things. I'm reading at the end, it says cost pool $450,000 each year with the opportunity to roll over unspent funds into the following year. Just a question how that relates to the $7 million that we're looking to approve here.
Mr. Chair, we have, Cindy Caesar here, and she can explain that to us.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Cindy Caesar. I'm the Human Service Division Manager, and I'm just one part of this contract. That cost pool, what it includes is actually any pharmacy, so medication that may need to be purchased. Otherwise, if there are any procedures that we need to cover. When individuals are in the jail or otherwise in a correctional facility, we are unable to bill medical assistance or health plans during that time. And so together the facilities will have one large cost pool, which we will draw upon, paying for those different expenditures.
Commissioner Look.
Mr. Chair, just as two questions I have actually. First of all, the $7 million, what was it costing us prior? Just so we understand, these are costs as when we incarcerate people, we're responsible for their health-related costs. Do we know what that, is this an increase or decrease, I guess, from what we previously?
Yes. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Look, yes, it is an increase from what we were paying prior to this. So within the Corrections Department, we had about $600,000 that we were contributing on a yearly basis. So for that department, it will be about $300,000 additional. For the jail, and they're not here today, but I think it's about $200,000 or $300,000 per year more than what they currently are budgeted to pay for those expenditures.
Sure.
And then just to follow up, I think we were talking a little bit about how we can lobby from a federal standpoint as far as the laws required, because if these people had medical insurance of some sort, then they get incarcerated, then they need some sort of procedure. We can't go back and ask the medical insurance to insure them on this, which really is unrelated to whether they're incarcerated or not. And so then it kind of falls on the taxpayer. And as you can see, it's a significant fall on the taxpayer to pick this up. And so hopefully from a lobbying standpoint, we're going to be pressing hard for our federal delegation to look at this and consider the financial impact that counties are bearing all across the nation on this. So,
Commissioner Reiner.
I believe additionally, though, too, with the increase in costs, that there is additional services in with the contract that we did not have before. Is that accurate?
Mr. Chair, that would be correct. I think a benefit with this contract is that we are receiving additional psychiatric type of assistance. Also, we have an MD, a medical director, that will be coming in every other week and meeting with some of our higher risk individuals. So we are pretty pleased, I think, with the package that MEND was able to put together for us and the array of different services that they're able to provide.
Yeah, so not actually an apples to apples comparison. There's additional services, but also it's going to be constant with this is no variability in service, which we might have had a little bit of that before, having to staff ourselves.
Yes, and also electronic records. It's kind of a big deal in this day and age to get to the electronic records level, and that's included in this package. I would comment to Commissioner Look's point, the whole Medicare and Medicaid carryover for inmates has been challenging. We've made great headway in Washington, D.C. We're poised, I believe, for the next session to have something happen. And to really boil it down, what happens is when somebody is incarcerated pre-adjudication, they're innocent until proven guilty, but yet their Medicaid stops immediately when they're arrested. And so they're in our jail unprotected except by the taxpayer. And we feel that shouldn't happen that way. Until they're actually found guilty and incarcerated, that's when Medicare and Medicaid stops, and that's where we should take over. So that's what the litigation is. It kind of, or not litigation, that's what the legislation is that we're attempting to garner. And that really what it does, in its simplest terms, we just want people protected until they're found guilty. Whether they're in our jails or whether they're on the streets, they should be protected by Medicare and Medicaid until that point. The federal government obviously changed that as a budget protection for them, because they don't have to pay all that Medicaid and Medicare to all those inmates the whole time they're sitting in the jails. That's now on the local taxpayer. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just commentary too with the addition in particular of the mental health aspect. Potentially this could help to change the outcome of some of these inmates, period. So in terms of just how they're experiencing it and if they can have a healthy recovery for whatever their issues were previously, like you're talking about. So thank you.
Thank you. We do have a motion. Commissioner Gamache.
Oh, just to follow up on your conversation about what was happening in Washington, D.C. when we were out there in February, which seems like a decade ago, but it was only a few months ago now, that we had really good conversations with all our representatives or their staff in many different areas. So I think, at least from as far as the representatives here in the state of Minnesota, they are seemingly on board with making the changes. So let's hope that something comes about.
Thank you. But like everything in Washington, D.C. or St. Paul, it's a give and take, and you got to give up something to get something, and we just got to be on the get something side when this one comes around. So we do have a motion and a second on the contract. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Attorney Palumbo.
I assume there's an indemnification clause here. Many times litigation by inmates has to do with failure to provide proper medical care. I am assuming this is part of our contract.
That is correct.
It is part of the contract.
It's part of it.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm hoping your office looked at this and probably approved it all before it
So
got
that
here.
it did. I just remind the board that our largest claim ever paid was to an inmate for over $3 million.
Thank you for that reminder, I think.
Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but this is very, very important aspect, and it is a change in direction for the county, and I think it's a very positive one, to be real frank. But that is a concern, obviously. Certainly from the attorney's office perspective, want to make sure that, because that's where the bulk of I think, very meaningful jail litigation comes from, is in the failure to provide medical services appropriately.
Thank you. Again, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look, Commissioner Brassad, Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye. And that item passes. Item 2.
The committee recommends adoption of Resolution 2020 PS08, accepting dedicated donation from Nancy R. Swanson. We thank Nancy for her generous donation, and I'll offer that resolution.
There's a resolution before us. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, it's a roll call vote.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte, Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
That item passes. Item 3.
The committee recommends approval and execution of the 2021 law enforcement contracts for a term of January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021 with the following municipalities. We have the city of Nowthen in the amount of $259,695 and the city of Ham Lake in the amount of $1,155,994. These are both contract renewals, and I'm happy to move those.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner West. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Opposed?
Commissioner Brassad,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
And that item passes 6-1 with Commissioner Look dissenting. Next, item 4.
The committee recommends approval of the purchase of 9 police squad cars for the sheriff's office from Dodge of Burnsville off the state contract in an amount not to exceed $234,000, which equals $26,000 per squad average, plus any tax, license, and delivery fees. These 9 squad cars were in the sheriff's plan for replacement for 2021, but the contract is opening up in August. So their ask was that we use, basically forward them this money to make this purchase, and we will be using asset preservation, and then we will get repaid from the 2021 budget.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner West. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Reinert. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Look. Aye. Commissioner Brassad.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
And that has a unanimous vote.
And that concludes my report.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Brasted, and we will move back to our regular agenda, and we'll move to item 9, which is to consider approving the following related to the City of Fridley Tax Increment Financing District. First, we will be reviewing the proposed tax increment financing district number 25, which is the Holly Center. And B, we will be submitting comments on tax increment financing district by September 14th of this year to the city in lieu of the traditional 30-day comment period. You do have a copy of that plan before you. You'll see it's a fairly comprehensive plan to knock down the Holly Center and turn it to housing with a daycare, I believe, one detached building, which would be a standalone daycare center. So I think we need a motion to approve this.
So moved.
There's a motion by Commissioner Meisner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gamache. Is there further discussion? Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just commentary. So for those who live in the city of Fridley, it's a 30-day comment period. So I would encourage everyone to take advantage of that through the city of Fridley. This is a big deal. The Holly Center has been there for a very long time. So I know that I've heard some questions already around this. And again, I just encourage everyone to take that 30 days of public commentary and to reach out to the city council members and so forth if you have any questions about this. Thank you.
I'll take this opportunity just to explain, well, I'm not going to explain tax increment financing because it's fairly complex, but I'm going to take a moment to remind people that this property is currently valued at $5 million or less, and the proposed project puts it, I believe, north of $39 million, if I recall correctly. Some of that tax increase is captured over time and used for the developer to move the project forward because, but for that increment, they wouldn't be able to redevelop and the place would stay in disarray. So this is a tool that's commonly used by municipalities. It does take money out of city, county, and school district pockets for a number of years while they invest into the project. That's, I think, TIF 101. I may have misspoken a little bit here and there, but that's basically how I see it. So that's where we're at with this project. Attorney Palumbo.
For the record, could we please state the exact nature of the motion? Just so I think the record ought to be clear in something like this. Are we approving the request by the city of Fridley to implement tax increment financing for this project? Is that the nature of the motion?
If I understand the motion, we are considering approving the tax increment that we've reviewed it. We're approving that we have reviewed their plan. Karen is here with our HRA, and she can tell me exactly what we're approving here today. But because it's asking us to approve it, I assumed we were approving that we have reviewed it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You are correct. This is a city financing tool. They have come to us, offered to share their tool with us. We are able to make public comments, but all we are doing today is acknowledging that we have reviewed the plan.
Very good. Thank you, Karen.
So with that, there is no approval with this action for cost to the county based on any proposal by the city to, I guess, give benefit to the developer, right? At this point, that'll be a future consideration.
It will not be a future consideration. We have no control if a city chooses to do a tax increment financing district. We are bound by their decision. We can weigh in with comments, but we do not have official authority to say, no, you can't do this, or we need all our money. We don't have that choice.
So all terms that would be negotiated with the developer by the city, the county would feel effective?
Correct.
And the school district?
Correct. Commissioner Look has dealt with this in Ramsey quite a bit, so he may have some more information for us.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chair. The tax increment financing, whatever the project right now generates in taxes, the county will continue to receive, as will the school district. and the city, but any increase from there, from the 5 million to the 39 million or whatever it is, that increased tax would all 100% go back to the city and can only be used within that tax increment area, the geographical boundary of that area. When I was on city council, tax increment was a great idea. When moving to the county, it's a terrible idea. Because generally it has a 25-year lifespan that we don't see any taxes from the county as a result of it. We do see increased traffic and everything else on the roads accessing the development, which then in some cases may cost us more money to try and maintain our roads that are kind of feeding that development. But commonly it is used as a development tool to try and offset, sewer, water, electrical, whatever the case may be, to bring it into this project and try and incent the developer to come in. And I think most developers, it's not really an option anymore. They somewhat expect it.
And I think the pivotal word is increment, because it is the increment over and above the base value that is captured for the district. So we will always receive the base value of what it is today. In years going forward, we just won't receive that increment over and above that. Commissioner Reinert, then Commissioner Meisner.
Yeah, as mayor in Lino Lakes too, we dealt with this a lot, and what we always kept to, you said it could be up to 25 years. What we always tried to do is to keep it down to 6 years, just because that was a number that we would negotiate with the developer. And so there is that negotiating ability to, keep the effect down and try to gain, the residual tax benefit from a redeveloped piece of ground and start coming in sooner. And I was going to also reiterate, but you already did, the fact that, the selling point, I guess, to the residents is that the valuation of the property as it would be today, if the development happens or the development doesn't happen, the city still gets and the county still gets taxes that for that valuation. It's only on the increased amount of value that then is, I guess, forgiven or is a benefit to the developer for the number of years that are negotiated.
Thank you. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, and clearly the developer does receive a lot of benefits, but it's a long-term objective for growth in cities. And so it is a tool, but at the long-term end of the day, then there's economic growth and development for these cities. But that's interesting that you had a 6-year cap. I like that, actually.
It's something we always tried to negotiate. We weren't successful in keeping it to 6 with recent development.
Right.
That was actually the last large development that that I negotiated as mayor, and that was a Lynn Bloomstead senior housing project that was $77 million project. But what you do is you always have the but-for test, and but-for increment financing, can this project happen? And so, mathematically, financially, you can figure that out. Because there is a lot of infrastructure with utilities and road improvements and things like that become an incredible burden sometimes, and especially where this development was, we had to bring in sewer and water and everything to the area. So, but for some increment financing benefit, that project would not happen, and it's going to be a fantastic project, actually, a $77 million project in kind of a blighted area. So.
Thank you. And not to belabor it much longer, certainly this is one of those things we don't even have to talk about. We don't have control over it. We are making comment. But I think it's maybe a little bit of an education for our viewing public as to what TIF is and how it affects everybody. The benefit in this particular case is the Hawley Center had a gas station and a dry cleaner. Both of them had substantial leaks over time, which causes redevelopment problems. Coon Rapids went through the same thing at the old Coon Rapids Shopping Center, and it requires a great deal of public investment to clean up that land to get it so it's saleable again. And TIF districts are a big part of making that happen. Without that, the but-for test, but-for TIF, these aren't going to redevelop, and it's a blight on the community, a blight on your tax base, and it keeps people from moving to town. And people start moving out unless you start redeveloping. So there's a plug for cities. Keep redeveloping, keep working. We'll, in Commissioner Look's mind, use as little TIF as you have to. Negotiate hard and do your best to do these projects without TIF, but when you need to, we will comment as productively as we can and hopefully convince you to keep them as short as possible. With that, are there further questions? Again, the motion before us is to acknowledge we have received the proposed tax increment financing district number 25, the Holly Center, and our comments will be submitted. And there was a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that passes. Next, we'll move on to item 10. We'll consider approving the liquor license application as reviewed by and consented to by the township sheriff and attorney. This is for the Stacy's Lions Club. It's a 3.2 malt liquor license for one of their annual events. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Reinert. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner West. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That will pass unanimously. Item 11, we have a couple of committee appointments. We'll consider appointing David Turnridge, representing District 3, to the Community Corrections Advisory Board for a 2-year term ending August of 2022. The application is before you. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move it.
I have a motion by Commissioner West. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Brasted. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that passes. Next, we'll consider appointing J.D. Holmquist, representing District 5, and Brian Nystrom, representing District 7, to the Community Health Advisory Committee for terms expiring July 31st of 2023. Both of those applications are before you. And I would like to move them. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gamache. Further discussion? I would just comment that Mr. Nystrom is my appointment from District 7. He is, if you read the application, it's lengthy. He's ingrained in our community. He's worked in the healthcare field for a great amount of time, still has a passion for it. He's a hardworking man, does a lot of good stuff for Anoka County. I'm excited he accepted my invitation for this and look forward to his work here. Commissioner Meisner.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I was just going to make commentary that in the committee, we all recognize the impressive resumes of both of these people, and so thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gamache.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Mr. Holmquist is going to be my representative. I'm from District 5, and I actually had 2 people that I interviewed, which doesn't always happen. So I want to thank both of them for interviewing and submitting applications. But I'm very encouraged by meeting with Mr. Holmquist and what he might be able to do on the Community Health Advisory Committee. So thank you.
Thank you. And you know, public health is no more front and center than right now than it ever has been in history. It's there right now, and we're seeing all the work people have done for decades come to fruition. And we're blessed in Anoka County. We've had a great public health department and health advisory board. We've been really lucky. And I'm convinced these appointments will further that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That item passes. We are now going to jump into our Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. CARES items. First, from the local government category, we will consider a resolution accepting Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Securities Act block grant funds from the state of Minnesota. Corey, walk us through item 12, if you would, please.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Corey Kampf. I'm the Finance and Central Services Division Manager, and also sit on the CARES Act committee that goes through all these items. So the first one we have is a block grant of $272,000 for elections coming from through the Secretary of State, through the state of Minnesota. And as part of that grant, by accepting it, we are also providing $182,000 to the municipalities to help them with the election. And this is to deal with the increased costs for elections related to absentee and other efforts to make the polling places safe under the COVID-19 pandemic. And so this resolution just allows it, and we will be forwarding, I believe, Paul, to the communities after this is adopted, correct? So yes, there is a requested amount that the Secretary of State has put out that says they recommend we do that. By us doing that, the cities are required to report how they spent the money because we have to report back. We've done a survey and they've all requested how much they're going to spend and they're prepared to show that. So we feel confident in that.
Thank you, Corey. Is there an offer of the resolution?
I'll offer the resolution.
Commissioner West has offered the resolution. Is there further discussion? Commissioner Gamache.
Just a quick question, Mr. Chair. I'm assuming that I'm reading this right. This is actually coming from the Secretary of State, so it's not our money that we've already received. This is above and beyond what we're working on as far as the CARES Act.
Right, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gamache, we have additional money in the CARES Act, in our normal CARES Act, to help offset additional election costs, because the $90,000 that's left over will not meet our total need or total cost. So we do have money allocated, if you remember, in the further resolution, to help offset the additional costs that we will be incurring.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Brassad.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
That item passes. Next, we'll consider approving purchasing movable walls and furniture in the amount of $135,091 from the vendor Prevolve to establish 5 virtual rooms in the following locations. There will be 2 rooms at the Jobs Training Center in Blaine, 1 room at the License Center in Coon Rapids, 1 room at the Mississippi Library in Fridley, and 1 room at North Central Library in Ham Lake. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move it.
There's a motion on the floor by Commissioner Brassad. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Meisner. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Next, we'll move to item 14. We'll consider approving purchasing hardware in the amount of $38,059.64 from CDW. Installation in the amount of $11,087.38. $10,245.90 of that would be to Insight and $841.48 to the state of Minnesota. And cabling in the amount of $880.44 to Heartland for the purchase and installation of 2 new edge routers and new firewall optics to increase our bandwidth to the internet, to the state. We get our internet from the state and that increases our bandwidth. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Reinert, second by Commissioner Meisner. Is there further discussion? With that, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
And that item passes. Item 15, we'll consider approving purchasing a 1-year subscription to an online platform that would allow the Anoka County Career Force to continue to provide online assistance and opportunities for employees and job seekers with the vendor Easy Virtual Fair in the amount of $54,000. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Meisner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gamache. Further discussion? Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Nicole spoke briefly about this, and it sounds like a great tool, and everyone can have their own profile with it, and so she was very excited about this, so thank you.
And as a reminder, this is a CARES Act funded item because we are forced to go virtual with many of our interviews and all the applications for building resumes. Everything else we're doing, we need to do virtual, and this is another option that helps us do that more efficiently. Seeing no further discussion, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache. Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye. That item passes. We'll move to item 16. We'll consider approving expanding the automated materials handling system at the Northtown Library with the vendor TechLogic Corporation in the amount of $111,040. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move it.
I have a motion by Commissioner West on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Reinert. Is there further discussion? Commissioner Meisner.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so it sounds like mostly this is due for social distancing with the volume that the libraries need to do.
That,
I mean, because otherwise we wouldn't necessarily be looking at investing in another sorter.
Commissioner Meisner, it's not a new sorter, it's the extension of an existing one and additional components. It does help with social distancing. I think it also helps the patrons. They can work further away. I mean, yes, it's mostly social distancing, but there's also inside the building, it makes for more efficient flow, efficient handling. I think that's basically it.
Okay, thank you.
If I recall from the meeting. Further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
That item passes. Next, we'll move to item 17, consider approving developing and distributing a community resource mailing to all county residents in an amount not to exceed $37,000 for printing and postage with Johnson Lithographic. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Meisner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gamache. Is there further discussion? Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just that I'm really pleased that we are doing this. I think obviously there's so much information out there, and so to inform all of our residents is a very good thing. So good investment. Thank you.
Thank you. And as elected officials, we are inundated with information via email, via mail. I mean, we all get coronavirus 24/7, 365, and the delete button gets hit really fast because they're not always trusted sources. We need to be that trusted source. We need to be the one where they actually pay attention to it when it comes in the door. So not overwhelming them is important, not getting too much information out there too fast. Being well thought out about this piece, getting it in the right hands at the right time is critical. So I do agree with Commissioner Meisner that this is something we should do, but we need to be prudent and we need to be smart about it, because if we want to be trusted, we can't make a misstep. When you make that first big misstep, they don't trust you anymore. So we'll make sure we get this right. Any further discussion? This is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
That item passes. And lastly, consider approving a contract with Bluestone Physician Services of Stillwater for COVID-19 testing in long-term care and congregate living settings in Anoka County in an amount not to exceed $1 million. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Gamache. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner West. Is there further discussion? I would just suggest that this is our most vulnerable population. When you look at all the charts, they're certainly not, in Anoka County anyways, they're certainly not the predominance of people that are dying or infected from COVID-19, but they are the most vulnerable and the one that could easily spike quickly. So this is important. So I do support this. Any further discussion? This is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
Commissioner Brassad.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
That item passes. Is there anything else to come before the county board? Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have probably a question for Corey. As we are going through the CARES Act funding, I know for myself, I like to have some sort of gauge of where we're at in terms of, we had $43 million, and so where's the gauge as we're spending down? So I'm just curious if we are going to be getting updates of where we are with that, whether that's weekly or monthly. But for me, I would definitely kind of like to know where we're at, because it's really easy, I think, to get lost as we're approving the needs, but then where am I with the $43 million in total?
Certainly, and I think that's something that we need to provide probably at the next workshop. I think we're going to be talking about that. I haven't seen an agenda yet, but it's my assumption this is front and center for all of us.
Okay.
The 43.4 million, of that I can tell you from the last worksheet I looked at, there's still 7.7 million that is unallotted, that we have not allotted yet, but the rest of it is all allocated and ready to be spent.
Okay.
But beyond that, there's still more to come, and I think quantifying that at a work session of some form, whether it's in an Excel spreadsheet or verbal, I mean, I think it's something important for all commissioners to embrace and understand where we're at in that process.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking the question.
Yep. Yeah, and Mr. Chair, if I could just comment quickly on that. We could certainly to the board bring that high level. If you think of the resolutions we did that have the categories, we could certainly bring to the board something that is categorized like that, but be able to, in a workshop, probably go into a little more detail, just to help people feel comfortable. I think both are options that we can discuss.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Anything else to come before the county board? Again, go out and get counted. Census, it's important. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.